I got several questions I want to ask you. Number one, were there ever any other suspects to your knowledge in this case? Or did the authorities immediately zone in on Melly and his co-defendant?
Yeah, it was pretty much Melly in the beginning and his co-defendant because when Bortlen dropped off the bodies at the hospital, things weren't adding up from the very beginning. That's the issue. And then when forensics came in, it was obvious that a lot of the shots occurred within the car. They found a shell casing in the car. How is a shell casing supposed to be in this car when you're alleging that the bodies were shot through a drive-by? If I'm getting hit in my car from a drive-by, it's not like a shell casing is going to come from that car to my car. So in the very beginning, things didn't make sense. And then with Bortlen's testimony or interview that he gave, and there was clearly some falsehoods there. Cops are like, we don't really need to look much further than these two. Now, the defendant Melly, he's saying kind of in opening statements and kind of what his defense team is alluding to, it could be a lot of people. It wasn't our guy. It could have been, these drive-by people. Could have been Bortlen, right? Could have been a lot of people, but it just wasn't us. But in terms of the law enforcement, they were pretty sure that it was kind of one of the two.
Okay. That being said, I know that we are still in the part of the case where it's the prosecution, the state, is presenting their side. So it's no it's no accident that this looks very bad for Melly. The defense is going to have a chance to present their side. And I'm sure they're going to bring forensic experts on board to contradict all of the findings of the state's forensic experts. Has it been shown to your knowledge if there is one or multiple shooters in this case?
Well, it seems like the forensics is thinking their story is there were two shootings. There was a shooting inside the car coming from the rear passenger seat where Melly was sitting. And then there was another shooting into the car from the right-hand side. All right, so those are the two shootings involved in this incident. The shootings from the outside in, they did hit the bodies, but it's been shown that the bodies were already dead, right? So if the bodies are already dead, let's not worry about that second shooting. What about the first shooting? Well, the first shooting, according to all the evidence, is that it occurred in the car. One of the bodies has stippling on the face, right? And stippling is what you get. It's basically just gunpowder that burns the skin. And the gunpowder burns the skin because the projectile was fired, the gun was fired so close to the skin. How are you going to have that proximity between the skin and the weapon in a drive-by? You'll never get it. There was there was gunpowder residue in the car that they found, and the gunpowder residue appeared to be coming from the back, the rear passenger seat, which again contradicts the story about the drive-by. The forensics is like, yeah, there were two shootings, but there was really the first shooting that killed the two brothers.
Okay, and I want to be specific with my question. I understand there were two shootings, but it could make a difference in this case because obviously it's a life and death case.
Yeah.
Literally. Could they show if it was multiple shooters?
Oh, multiple shooters.
Yes.
The forensics, they don't think so. from the angles of the bullets, from the trajectory of the rounds, from the stippling, it looks like it all came from the same gun. That's the problem with forensics. You really can't argue it. The only thing that you can do, and it's like you said, is bring in your own expert to interpret the facts, interpret the data, and then you'll just have a battle of two forensic experts, right? And the jury will just have to listen to both and kind of decide who is right, because we regular people are not competent to decide on the science and the trajectories and all that. I think the last forensic expert that was on the stand, he was talking about how he uses the Pythagorean theorem daily to figure out some of these angles. None of us regular people use this theory. So we just have to sit back and listen to what they say and try to decide who is right. So hopefully, like you say, Melly brings in his own forensic experts and they can contradict some of the state's testimony. But it looks from what we have right now that there was not multiple shooters. There was just one shooter coming from one direction. The expert said it looked like the gun, if I'm sitting in the back seat, there was a shot here, which is kind of weird the way he pointed the gun, because it was kind of like 90 degrees. It was, bang to the side of the head, and then, bang, bang to the brother in the front. It doesn't look like Bortlen had a weapon that was firing similarly, to the side, or certainly not to the back seat. So all of the bullets came from a singular point in the rear driver's side, according to the forensic what we have now. And like you said in this, you're exactly right. We haven't seen what Melly's defense is. We don't know what their experts are going to say. The prosecutor's case should look very strong. It should look extremely strong, like you were saying, because we haven't heard the other side. If I get into a fight with somebody and I'm allowed to tell my side and they're not allowed to tell their side yet, my side's going to seem pretty persuasive. It's only until you hear their side and then compare the two where you're like, okay, well, let's think about this. So you're exactly right in saying that the state's case should look strong. It didn't look strong in the beginning. The Melly's team was doing a really good job of pushing back on the state's points, but day after day, as their case has been accumulating, as their case has been building, it's starting to look very, very bad. But we'll have to kind of reserve our judgment and see what happens when Melly gets his chance to put on some evidence. And again, he's not really trying to put on evidence so much to show that he's innocent, versus he's trying to put on evidence to create, reasonable doubt, because he doesn't have to show that he's innocent. He just has to show that the case that the state has is not strong enough to carry the reasonable doubt burden.
Correct. Last question before we move this thing on. The victims allegedly were his friends. They all knew each other. These were not random associates. They were actual friends. And if I'm a juror and I'm just thinking from the standpoint of sitting in that jury box, I get the forensic, and I'm gonna weigh that heavy. But I'm also a human being, and I'm being tasked with deciding the fate of a man who says, I didn't do it. There were no witnesses there. I'm telling you my version of a story, and I'm hoping that this entire thing is terrible. Two people lost their lives. Let's not take the lives of two other people who could possibly be innocent. Has the state, in your opinion, put out a motive that would show the jurors that these people would pick up a gun knowingly and end the lives of two people that they call friends?
Yeah, they haven't really gotten into that yet. And you're exactly right. The jury is going to want to know, why are there two bodies in this car? Why are there two dead people? Like, what's the reason? People typically don't kill other people without a reason. Now, it's come out that, not in this trial necessarily, but Melly's girlfriend was receiving nudes from Sachs, one of the people that was killed. And you may say, well, okay, if I got a girlfriend and she's receiving nudes from my homeboy, that's a betrayal. But that's not a betrayal sufficient enough for me to murder this guy. That would be fair to say. But we need to understand, number one, that, when this occurred, Melly still is young. And when it occurred, he was even younger. But if we're going to be honest, Melly is not all right in the head. I haven't seen any paperwork, but he's he stated on interviews prior to this arrest that, he was bipolar or, schizophrenic. He's talked about how there's a Melvin and, Melvin is super nice. Melvin is caring. Melly is nice. Melly is caring. Melly is sweet. But then he also has a Melvin inside of him. And he was saying, well, Melvin protects Melly, and I only let Melvin out at night. When people start saying that they only let their personalities out at night, that's when you know, right? So what motive do you need for someone who is not all of there mentally, I suppose? You probably need lesser of a reason than a normal person. Now, they haven't gotten into any of that, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.